Since 2018, the level of Cold War and confrontation between China and the United States has been escalating, reaching its peak last year and early this year. At that time, the top leaders of China and the United States almost cut off all exchanges. The Chinese and American militaries did not establish regular exchanges, and the situation was very tense. But suddenly, the United States realized something and began to extend an olive branch to China on many occasions and make peace with China. In addition, the U.S. Secretary of State, Treasury Secretary Yellen, and a series of senior officials were dispatched to visit China. Recently, the governor of California, which is known as the third largest GDP in the world, was sent to visit China. Many people have questions. Why did China-U.S. relations suddenly improve? What's the logic behind this? Welcome to World Hotspot, where you will be able to learn about projects, cooperation around the world, and important information about China. I hope you can subscribe to me. Let us discover more interesting things around the world together. We must first clarify the strategic purpose of the United States. No matter what choice the United States makes, it is to safeguard its own national interests. So why did Trump launch a trade war with China in 2018? It was because China at that time was already the world's factory, relying on selling resources and labor. Not only has it earned the world's largest trade surplus, its comprehensive national power has become stronger and stronger, and its military and technological strength have also been developed. On the contrary, the United States at that time had already experienced a serious hollowing out of the manufacturing industry. Therefore, Trump's countermeasure is to start a trade war with China, taking advantage of China's overall national strength advantage. Let more American companies return to build factories in China and curb China's booming foreign trade trend. Therefore, for the United States, the trade war with China is correct and is in line with the national interests of the United States. So we see that although Trump did many weird things when he was in office, his original intention was still for the interests of the United States. But when Trump stepped down and veteran politician Biden came to power, things began to change again. Biden first continued the trade war measures against China. After all, the sanctions from 2018 to 2020 did have a great impact on China's exports. China's foreign trade has slowed down from 2020 to 2021 and even created a more glorious history. However, in the semiconductor and chip industries, China has suffered serious development setbacks since the Sino-US technology war began. In particular, Huawei's chip supply has been cut off, and China is not allowed to use U.S. technology and U.S.-funded companies to develop semiconductor technology. China's chip industry has suffered an unprecedented serious blow. Biden's approach is actually in line with the interests of the United States. Therefore, starting from the year before last, the sanctions on China's semiconductors have been continuously escalated, becoming more severe each time. Even after Huawei made a breakthrough and produced the 7nm level Kirin 9000S, the United States upgraded its sanctions again. So getting back to the subject, why has there been a major reversal in U.S. policy toward China in recent months? The United States and China went from being unable to negotiate before to being able to negotiate or even actively negotiating now. The main problem is that something went wrong on the American side. The first is the climate field that the United States is interested in. Due to the existence of the Paris Agreement, the United States realizes that the Paris Agreement without China's participation and cooperation is just a piece of waste paper. Without negotiations with China, all U.S. climate actions will be ineffective and absurd. Coupled with the plans and progress of photovoltaic power generation and wind power generation in the United States. In essence, they all purchased Chinese-made photovoltaic equipment and wind energy power generation equipment. Therefore, the progress of the U.S. carbon neutrality plan actually depends on the speed of purchasing Chinese photovoltaic equipment. Therefore, the U.S. climate ambassador has come to China alone many times for negotiations and dialogues. The second is the economic aspect. There are many problems in this area in the United States, and it is also the key to the United States showing goodwill to China. First of all, the United States currently has a debt of up to $33 trillion. The spiral debt has put great pressure and burden on the development of the U.S. economy itself. Secondly, the latest fiscal deficit in 2024 is as high as $1.8 trillion, and there will be more in the future. Many of these expenses and costs are caused by the trade war and technology war with China. Although life in China is not easy, it is generally much better than the United States. Therefore, the United States began to think about whether sanctions on China can bring greater benefits. After all, sanctions against China are politically correct in the U.S. political arena and strategy. But after using it for a long time, there were not many votes left. Therefore, recently, U.S. Treasury Secretary Yellen publicly published a signed article stating that the Chinese and American economies are not a zero-sum game. China and the United States have ways to both compete and cooperate. President Biden believes that the complex Sino-U.S. relationship needs to be handled through a pragmatic economic strategy. Generally speaking, the United States has gone from being relatively absolutely and extremely hostile to China to now being able to negotiate with China. The main reason is that the U.S. economy is failing and the Federal Reserve cannot continue to raise interest rates. In the following months, the U.S. economy will fall into recession. If we look at it from a historical perspective, the same is true. During the honeymoon period when China and the United States established diplomatic relations, the United States provided various economic and military assistance to China because the greatest interest of China and the United States at that time was to jointly deal with the threat from the Soviet Union. That's why China and the United States entered the honeymoon period, breaking the Western countries' blockade on China, and China followed the trend of reform and opening up. Throughout the following period, Sino-U.S. relations developed well. It is because the United States has never regarded China as a competitor, but as its little brother, that it has not been cruel to China. The third aspect is that the United States is currently fighting on multiple fronts and continues to anger China, which is detrimental to the United States. The current mess in the United States is really not small. First of all, in terms of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, NATO, led by the United States, is the main force supporting Ukraine. Because Ukraine's own domestic manufacturing capabilities have been basically wiped out, all weapons and ammunition for the Ukrainian army basically require support from the United States. The United States is still planning to provide $100 billion to support Ukraine. You know, Ukraine is facing the Russian regular army, so the pressure on the frontal battlefield is very high. The second is the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Since the United States clearly supports Israel, and Israel has engaged in a lot of frivolous operations for a period of time. Therefore, the pressure from international public opinion faced by the United States is very high. Objectively speaking, Arab countries are very dissatisfied with the outbreak of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and are preparing to take action. The United States also had to dispatch 2 elite aircraft carrier battle groups to the Mediterranean to defend Israel. It can be said that the most elite maritime power of the United States has been dragged into the Palestinian-Israeli region. If conflicts between China and the United States intensify at this time, China will have some thoughts on the island in the southeast. To be honest, the U.S. military has almost no troops to send. Because if the United States transfers its aircraft carrier, some Arab countries over there may take the opportunity to take action. Therefore, the United States is currently engaged in a 2-front war and has committed a military taboo. If there is another 3-front war, it will consume a lot of U.S. national power, and the United States may even be dragged down by it. This video ends here. What else do you think of the United States' sudden overture to China? Welcome to leave a message in the comment area below, and I will discuss it with you.